Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. We are here to talk about the digital twin of business operations, and we have invited a special guest chairperson, Dr. Natalie Petterhoff, who's going to be setting the scene for us. We have an agenda full of interesting items, and hopefully will be of interest to people on the call. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Natalie.
You're very welcome, Dean. I'm really excited about today because it's one of my favorite topics. It's one of the things that I'm really fascinated about. And the idea is, what if you had a crystal ball? And I know that sounds really too good to be true, but what if you had something that could really help you predict the future? I know most executives make decisions using, in part, their gut, but decisions based on evidence they're really better. But it's very difficult to get to that decision-making evidence. So I don't know, you're working on a contact center, you're in marketing, you're in sales, you're in IT, and as the year kind of rounds itself, you're probably starting to think about, in our next fiscal year, what am I going to do? And there's lots of things that you could potentially change. And we all know that you have to make a priority list because you can't change everything at once. So having a really solid idea of which initiatives you should try and which ones are going to give you the biggest return, and more importantly, back that up with data. I know as I've been working with a lot of companies, there's AIs on the top of everyone's mind, and deciding which type of AI technology could garner results, or deciding, there may be things that are happening in your organization, baseline things that you might want to choose between other things and AI. And so being able to create some sort of, I don't know, priority list, also looking at processes. So the idea here and what we're going to talk about is what if you could run simulations to get a view into the possible results and then rack those simulations? And what if you could use the simulations to really figure out and have discussions so that they don't always fall into politics, but really get that budget approval and feel really confident about your next choices? And I don't know, even think about how that might help you get priority in terms of budget or even promotability. So what I'm really excited about is that we have so many amazing guests. We're going to have Dean, who's going to talk about the framework. He's going to actually show us how the technology works. We have Amika, who's going to talk about how some of the challenges she was facing, and then how they used a digital twin to really articulate those issues and really look at amazing outcomes. And then HPE and is going to also talk about a case study. And then Travis is going to round out this amazing panel. So with that, what I'd love to do is I would love to hand it over to Dean, and he will take us through the first part.
Thanks, Dr. Natalie. So my role at Davies for our consultancy is helping businesses, helping CFOs, CTOs, CIOs to understand where they can improve service in operations while hopefully reducing costs, but understanding how to get to the answer in a low risk and low cost way. And as part of this work that we've done for these types of organizations, CX and service related organizations, we were using traditional tooling. And over a period of time, we discovered the digital twin concept and then BusinessOptix itself. And what we realized is that we can use our same methods and approaches to get those answers for people, but do it in a much more efficient and effective way. So with that in mind, it's probably best for me to start talking about what a digital twin actually is. So in its purest definition, a digital twin is a virtual replica of a system, a process, a product, and it's used to simulate, monitor, and analyze behavior. Now, in the context of an organization, this could represent a single process, a business unit, a customer journey, or indeed an entire operating model. But the important piece is that it's the data that you attach to those models that gives you actionable insights and allows you to make really good informed decisions about what's going to work and, importantly, what's not going to work in your organization. I think what we like most about the digital twin concept, and we've now been using it for 3 years, and we'll show you some interesting case studies later on in this webinar, is that we're able to model things in ways that we weren't able to before, and we're able to do them at much larger scale and indeed at a much more granular scale. So, with all of that in mind, let's actually open up the Davies digital twin. This is something we've been developing for some time. And the context of what you're looking at right now, if you can see my screen. I seem to have lost the share. Bear with me a moment.
Dean, we saw it. You were good.
Okay, my apologies. So, yeah, what you're looking at in front of you, this is the output of a project which we were given, where our global organization of around 60 businesses wanted to replace contact center technology. And we needed to understand across this broad, diverse range of businesses how they all use it and what was the strategy for changing the technology. What could we improve in terms of our service delivery to our clients? And importantly, what pain points and difficulties are we having with our current solution? So we built a framework, an operational framework of our group. And on the screen here, you can see at group level, our organization. So this is how we're structured. We're broken into 3 divisions. These are the partners and suppliers that we typically deal with, our physical locations, the IT, which supports our organization, and some of the opportunities that we identified to improve service delivery using new communications technology. Now, what you're looking at here is effectively the same as a Visio or a Lucidchart type tool. However, the difference with this is we can connect models. So if we want to drill down into one of the high volume areas where a new contact center telephony platform will have the most impact, we can link models that help us to describe these complex organizations in a lot more detail. So again, we've got the same view, but this time we're just looking at one business division. So here, for example, each of these green boxes is a separate business unit with its own needs and requirements. And again, we're able to take a more granular view of things like locations and IT. Where it becomes really interesting, however, is that we can start to attach data, metadata, so anecdotal information about what's happening within these business units and these locations. We can capture anecdotal information about the technology that is captured in there. And this is great for, running complex projects where you need to share information very quickly. It's all centralized. It's in a single source of truth. But even more interestingly, we can start to capture that anecdotal information as data. And that's what, if you're on the right-hand side of your screen, if you've got your viewer gallery, you might want to pop it to the top of the screen because we're going to spend a bit of time on the right. In here, we can start to capture all different types of data. It's all fully extensible, so we can capture whatever data we want. And each time we do, it feeds into a master set of records, which we can then report on later. So what you're looking at in the center of your screen is a list of the enterprise applications and systems we've captured, all in a hierarchy which we've determined and designed ourselves. And most of the work that we do discovery-wise is centered around value delivery, or how we deliver service to our customers. So for our claims division, we source client relationships so that we can offer our services. And then as part of our service, we have a first response step. We allocate work, we manage that work, and we close it. And by defining the customer value chain in this way, we can then start to drill down further. So we've gone from group to a division in one click. Let's drill down into a single business unit now and see how that business unit actually delivers its service to its customers. Just take a moment to refresh. So what we've got here, again, is that value chain across the top, that first response, the allocation of the work, the management of the work, and then the closing out of that work. And in this model, we have a voice channel, an email channel, and a load of touch points. So along the top, we have customer calls in and the corresponding agent action. They take them through ID&V, take relevant information, etc., etc. And by breaking down service delivery into these blocks, we can start to apply a red, amber, or green status based on how well the technology is supporting that. Again, these models are completely customized, and you can build your own, but there are lots of off the shelf as well. But in here, for example, if we scroll down, we can see that when we answer the call, there are a number of different problems that business unit was having. And these are captured as pain points. So sometimes the telephony platform crashes, manual ID&V, very quite tricky to listen to live calls, etc., etc. And because we've captured them in here, in these different boxes, we can start to build reports, and I'll show you those very shortly. So again, this is what we call a customer value map of an operation, and this is a very quick diagnostic tool that we've developed, which enables us to really find pain in operations quickly and help us answer those tricky questions of how can we improve our service. Now, one of these was identified as first notification of loss. There were some challenges there. And so again, we're able to drill down into that and present a more familiar view to probably most of you on this call, which is a traditional business process map. Again, not too different at the face value from something like a Visio or a Lucid chart. However, the difference here is we can capture work types. So we can see what's coming into that process. We can capture the roles, the people who are actually doing the work, and start to build out a taxonomy of the roles sitting in our organization, and again, use these to drive reports. We can also, importantly, capture work times and wait times. So across this process, we mapped out work times and wait times, and our hypothesis was if we used technology to retrieve email from a mailbox and put it into our claims system, we may be able to improve that customer experience and reduce cost. So we modeled in the same model a future state. And in that same model, we're able to turn a manual user task under our transformation into an automated task. And those automated tasks are using robots to do the work. The work times go down, the wait times go down, the equivalent cost goes down, and we can put all of this sort of useful information in. So why are we putting it all in here like this? Well, what it enables us to do is to run a simple back-end calculation in just a couple of clicks. And all of that information that we've entered in here allows us to test whether or not making that business change is going to improve our service level, and also what's it going to cost us. So in our original model, we put that introducing these robots would cost us about £85,000 based on 10,000 units of work coming through and 6% growth assumption. We're able to start looking at the differences between the as-is and the to-be. So we can look at all of the underlying data in the as-is state versus the to-be state. We can look at comparisons in service delivery time. So under our current state, it takes us this long, but we're reducing that to this long in here. We can also look at comparable work times between each of these steps. And we can use all of this information to inform whether or not this looks like a good change. But of course, always the thing on everybody's lips is, what's it going to cost us? Well, it can also spit us out a business case. And using our assumptions of 10,000 units per year, growing at 6%, our transformation costs will get our investment back in 1 year, 7 months. And in fact, over 5 years, there's around a 200K commercial business case for this change. That's just one very simple example. I'm just going to quickly touch for the next minute or so on the outputs. We captured all this data. We've got these ROI models, but we can now start to extract reports. And I think my Wi-Fi is groaning a bit here. Bear with me. Let's flick. There we go. So we can start to extract reports, and these reports, and this will segue quite nicely into Amika's case study section. Because we've captured this information, we can look for opportunities to improve. So if we want to replace all of our workflow that's currently done in Microsoft Excel in our organization, this report tells us every single process that we've mapped in our organization that uses Microsoft Excel. Just take a second. Here we go. So we can see the name of the process. We can see the step that they actually carry out, the role who's doing it, and this means then we can plan which processes need to change if we're going to bring a new piece of technology in, and who's going to need retraining. And this, again, we'll focus on in more detail in a moment. And just finally, if we want to go opportunity hunting in our business and we want to find out what all of those pain points, where they were captured, we have a report here where we can either search by the red, amber, green status, or we can flip to pain points and have a look holistically at our business to say, where is the customer experience pain point? And we can quickly identify which of the business units it occurs in. And we've got the detail which we captured in those earlier maps here. That's a whistle-stop tour. I'm going to now pass you over to Amika Myers, and we're going to just talk through the case study for this work where we've actually done it in the US. So Amika, thanks for joining the call.
Of course.
So if we talk about first of all, your role and some of the challenges you were facing.
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm the VP of Strategy and Growth for Davies US Specialty Programs. And as we were integrating, because we're a recent acquisition, one of the things that we're preparing to do is introduce new applications that are owned by our new parent company. So in our prior state, in our prior applications, we had to think about, excuse me, what are the changes that are going to be introduced? That's a very, very, very time-consuming process to really understand where we are now and then where are we going to go into these new applications. Are they going to solve for any of our existing problems? Do we have them top of mind? And then as we're preparing to just proactively plan to adopt the changes that the new application will bring, are we understanding all of the impacts, not just to train and to communicate, which are very, very important, but they're still a little bit surface. There are other things like what's the efficiency impact that might impact our staffing model? And are we remembering everyone who uses the various applications, our front end resources, our back end users as well? And then what do we need to make sure that we're also considering their current state job goals and objectives? How are these changes going to impact that? Do we have efficient documentation that our teams are used to receiving now to train and communicate? Are we thinking about those changes for the future? So there's just a lot of decisions. There are a lot of challenges because when you're changing an entire organization and the tools that they'll be using, you've got to plan, and that planning can take a significant amount of time. And there's a large risk that you'll allow some things to fall through the cracks. So this application with BusinessOptix has been invaluable to help us with business readiness for the changes that are being introduced.
Okay. Not too much then, Amika. So we've covered off your challenges. What were the challenges you were having with your sort of legacy toolings, MS Excel, Visio, et cetera, et cetera? Talk us through some of that.
Yeah, so using it, so of course, Excel, Visio, Lucid, these are all great tools. But the thing is, they're limited. They're very focused on just their individual use, which they're strong in that. But with BusinessOptix, it's a multi-use tool that allows us to go way deeper than just having one Excel that may list out all of the various maybe system requirements and the changes. But having a tool like BusinessOptix, where you can attach documents specifically where that value chain is, where that specific workflow point is, you can attach the training material, you can attach things like time studies on what is the current time study for this specific task. And then what will, when we change and go into a new application, how will that timing change? And then what will it impact in our entire workflow or business model? Being able to add notes and call out things like pain points. It can be done in Excel, but it's a little bit cumbersome. So having BusinessOptix has really reduced the time to really scoping out and planning the delivery of the changes. I mean, by at least 50% of what it would take by using the multiple tools that we were previously.
Yeah, 50, that's a big number, and that's reflected in also the discovery work we do with you, Amika.
Yeah.
It's taken at least a third off of discovery time because everything's in one place. I think, yeah, you've called out some sort of compelling messages. We obviously we've talked a lot about how we're using it right now, but how do you think it's going to benefit you in the future, and what other problems do you think it might solve you?
Well, it's helping in various ways with the documentation, but also just with business readiness planning for the changes that we're experiencing. We've been able to do a great job with like stakeholder and role impact analysis, and really understanding how future state could change things like our pricing structure. So when we're going to earn new business, are we able to call out all of the resolve pain points and the reduction in our operational expenses so we can project long term, okay, right now this might be our pricing structure. And we, with some of the reports that you just displayed, it showed when we would receive the return on investment and when we would start taking advantage of reduced costs. So now we could plan far in the future, knowing with the accuracy of the data that if we change our pricing structure today, we can be very confident that we'll be able to take advantage of the efficiency gains in the future. So we're able to operate a little bit ahead of maybe some of our competitors with our pricing structure and how we can reduce costs earlier with all of the data and the reporting that's coming out of BusinessOptix.
Fantastic. It's quite compelling. Well, look, I think that's probably a good time, Amika, to for us to introduce Travis Bristow from BusinessOptix. He's the Chief Innovation Officer and VP of Technology. So, welcome to the call, Travis.
And Travis, and thank you for this application.
Thanks very much, Dean. Yeah, I'll take it from here. You might need to let me switch over. Thanks, Dean. So I'm from BusinessOptix. We always say it's really good to see when our customers and our partners are actually have some good stories to tell and some success. We certainly like to think it happens regularly enough, but it's nice to be able to talk to them and see this sort of thing demonstrated and sort of get some of the feedback directly. So I'm not going to do too much of that sort of more show and tell type stuff today. I'm going to shortly introduce you to some more of our customers as well from HP Enterprise. But just before I do that, I'd just like to give a little bit of context from our perspective. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the digital twin concept, and I think between Dean and Amika, they gave you a good presentation on both kind of the technical and in the platform aspect to how some of those capabilities are delivered, and Amika gave you really good insight into how that was then leveraged and where the value was seen. So I thought I'd take a slightly different tack and just introduce how we're seeing a lot of our customers, the likes of Davies and various other success stories that I'll reference before introducing you to Marco and Stefan from HP. What we're seeing as the real foundation of all this is the process repository. And this is certainly a capability that's been core to our platform for a long time. I would hardly say it's the sort of one that people talk about the most loudly, or certainly is the top of your kind of marketing cliff notes, but it is without a shadow of a doubt the most key component of and the foundation of your digital twin. And I think you'll hear that from the team at HPE as well. And I thought I'd just briefly, before I hand over to them and ask them some questions, just refresh. We've been talking about this concept of DTO for many years with our partners and our customers, and it was terminology that was coined out of the analysts, and we've certainly ourselves been working closely with Gartner and others for many years who talk about this category. I'm not going to rehash everything. You can see the definition up on the screen there, and they've written about it a lot, as have many organizations and analysts. But if we take a slightly different approach to giving a very quick refresh on what that might look like, more often than not, it's about twinning in a digital sense those components and those pieces of, or those sort of abstractions of your organization in the form of people, process, and technology. And in order to do that, we have found that underlying repository and the data model that sits behind it is the most important piece. So historically, a lot of modeling tools, a lot of platforms that support this sort of thing, you're just talking about maps and blocks, but really what we've brought to it, and some of certainly our competitors have done something similar as well, is the underlying meta model. And that consists of these concepts of master data, being able to build more dynamic operating models, procedures and processes that kind of constitute those. And ultimately, you can see on the side there as well, it's all about them being stored in a well-governed, well-structured, linked up meta model. And giving access to that to your stakeholders, to interact with, to pull on, to tug on, to test, to run scenarios against. So that's what we believe, and we continue to innovate. There's obviously a lot of talk at the moment about concepts such as AI and how those technologies can be leveraged, and how, in your business to improve your operations, but also how technologies like us can leverage them to offer value to our customers. And we keep finding that having this robust repository at the heart of the DTO as the baseline and the foundation and the kind of knowledge base, it's starting to present a lot of value to our customers who are starting to explore those new disruptive technologies, AI being chief amongst them. If you have a quote unquote corporate brain in the form of a BusinessOptix or a business process management repository, just think about how much value you can add by pointing some of these various AI capabilities at those. Copilot for your business. It seems like a bit of a cliche these days, but it is, it's becoming something that more and more businesses want to at least explore and understand the value of. So I'll introduce you to one last sort of just tagline. We've had some very mature customers now started to develop along these lines, building out very robust process management repositories that they have now been able to start leveraging as a twin. There's a quote there from a very, or a much more mature customer of ours who've been working on this for a long time. Arguably, a lot of the time over the last few years where people have been presenting and talking about BusinessOptix, we've referenced this customer because it's been such a good story to follow. And HPE, who you're about to meet, will give you their own spin on how they've interacted with this customer of ours, the MIT Lincoln Laboratories as well. So, not going to spend too much time on that as the vendor and the technology underneath anything. I think underneath all of this, I think you've seen enough. So instead, I'm going to switch over. Sorry. I did have one last analogy before I planned to switch over. And since we do, I think, have time, I'll just quickly take you through it. What that repository and that underlying model represents, and sorry, Marco and Stefan, for getting you ready to go there and then pausing you. So this is a little sort of analogy I came up with for another webinar recently, and it's nothing new. It's just something that we thought told a good or gave a new lens on the story. If you think of a business, your business as the kind of building that it sits within, business is such a sort of an amorphous term. Every business does different things, but ultimately it's a big operational unit. And something we like to think about is removing the complexity and looking underneath. A business can be broken down into a bunch of core concepts, and really there's so many different ways of looking at this. Is just a slightly different take that we thought we'd offer in the context of the capabilities and the technology that BusinessOptix has. If you think of how the top floor or the strategic level of the business, the executives, the managers, the government stakeholders, the shareholders see a business presented to them, it's typically in the form of dashboards and dollars and cents, and how is the business performing? How is it delivering its services? And what supports that is the customer journeys and the delivery journeys and the service models and the various ways that we bring those services to interface with our customers. And those are inevitably facilitated by the management structures that kind of channel the work that's being done to those customers, whatever the customers and stakeholders may be. And how the work is being done can then be broken down into your SOPs, your work instructions, your automations, the various ways that the business is actually run, or the goods are made, the services are delivered. And if you follow that back up, if the work's being done, it's being managed well and effectively, customers and stakeholders are receiving their services, and ultimately the dollars and cents or the services are being delivered are meeting KPIs. And if we look at that, that's the sort of foundation as you build out your BusinessOptix or similar BPM repository. Those are the components that you start to build out, top to bottom, bottom to top, and they all start interlinking, and you're able to start testing them, adding new products. What would that new product do to the business? Extend that example out. So now I will switch over to the case study, and I'd like you to introduce you to a relatively new customer of ours. We deliberately, having spoken to this team, thought they'd be a good candidate for this because they're quite early on in their journey. I'm going to let them do most of the speaking, and just kind of tell you where they get to, where they've got to, and what their ambitions are. So without further ado, welcome Stefan and Marco. And I think the first question we wanted to pose to you was, what business challenges were you looking to solve?
Yeah, thanks, Travis. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. My name is Marco. So Stefan and myself are leading the BPM implementation in HPE. So I'll share a few things, what we did till now when we get started, and then Stefan will cover, I think, last slide on the benefits. So what we did last year, basically, we did some kind of investigation, what we are currently using to document our processes. And this was across the offices, across divisions. And we had, I would say, 23 different reasons, but you see here 4 of main ones, which we think were the problematic. So what we saw in our company is, or in our division, basically, that we do not have any process standardization. What that means is when we are mapping the processes, everybody were doing mapping differently. Yeah, so we didn't really follow any standard. Now in BusinessOptix, obviously BPMN 2.0 industry standard we are following. Regarding siloed working, again, divisions have different teams. Every team has their own, how they want to map, where they want to map, in which software, etc., where they want to even store those documents. And what happens there is a lot of people leave the company, people change jobs, process owners get changed, and all of that gets really a lot of issues when you want to really look up, for processes which are existing currently. Sometimes it can take even a few weeks until you really go via email to 7th, 8th person who says, yeah, that's the process which we used to have, but that's out of date, etc., etc. Again, tools, multiple tools and repositories, what I covered, same issues. people using Visio, PowerPoint, some other BPM tools, storing it on OneDrive, storing it on the repository like SharePoint. Even some people store it on their drives and never share it. Happens a lot, yeah. And one of the things what we saw, we wanted also to centralize process management, yeah. So again, those were the key ones. There were a lot of different issues which we wanted to solve and challenges, but those are the key ones, yeah. If I can have a next slide.
Thanks, Marco. And the next question was, what was your BPM vendor evaluation process?
Okay. On this one, as I said, we started last year. We investigated what we want to do, etc., etc. Now, once we actually realized, oh, BPM is a solution for us, we actually did some internal investigation, and also we went to Gartner saying, hey, what is there out on the market? What can we look at it? And they proposed a couple of different softwares, and we choose 11 of them. Yeah. Once we choose all 11 of them, which we want to basically interview, we went back to our division and said, hey, we need a panel of folks from each of the teams, functions basically, to create some kind of selection committee. I call it level 1 council. Yeah. And then we worked what are the requirements, what do we want to evaluate, all the stuff which is around the selection of the vendor. Yeah. And once we did that, basically we went from 11 down to 8, from 8 down to 3. And once we came down to top 3, and BusinessOptix was obviously one of them, we did, I would say, extensive, demo with all 3 customers. Yeah. And one part of that was also to go to current customers of those software companies, yeah, who are giving us the BPM. And in this case, for BusinessOptix, it was MIT team, and I would say they are maybe 4 or 5 years having already BPM tool from BusinessOptix. We are new, but it was really great, yeah. And one of the things which we liked from MIT is that they were really open to different I would say cooperation with us. But I'll cover that in a second. But what I want to say is, with our requirements and with all what BusinessOptix was offering us, this was the tool of choice for us, and that's why we went with BusinessOptix, because let me put it like this: we were looking at the process mapping software. But once we realized that in BusinessOptix you can do procedures as a document, work instructions, you can do value streams, you can do customer journeys, network diagrams, and all of those things were like, oh, okay. And then we are looking at transformation and simulation, for example, which we would obviously go in our path. Then also process analysis, some sort of mining. That was a software which we went on, and those are the reasons, because we get all package in one. We don't really need to go to different solutions in this case. Yeah. Now, process mapping is standardized. All the other things we still need to standardize from HPE perspective to be sure that we have standards and rules in place. But yeah, things are there, and I think that's a benefit for us. Yeah.
Thanks, Marco. So the next question then is, and the second to last, is where did you start with BusinessOptix?
Okay, this one is once we actually selected the BusinessOptix, yeah, then the real work started, yeah, obviously, and then we created, it was called, I call it level 2 council. Basically, that council was responsible to vetting all the governance, templates, guidelines, user roles and groups. For example, while in the BusinessOptix you do have mappers, participants, viewers, admins, we also have the process owners. We also have subject matter experts and all the other roles within the HPE. Then you are talking about vendor management. Who's going to engage with the BusinessOptix? We also needed to create, how do we want to approach this? Who would be the mappers? Do we do train the trainers? Do we have just division for mapping? And things like that. Then who is providing the support for issues raised by the business units? Yeah. So all of those things, you need to have in place, and you can call it governance. But that is the level 2 council who was, responsible for that. And from that level 2 council, we also had a core team who was actually doing different work streams. Master data, for example, comes to mind, which is great in BusinessOptix, by the way. We talk about roles, systems, now compliance, obviously, capabilities, all of those things are, something which you need to define, and using it as a master data is helping us that, not everybody comes and creates a mess, but we have some kind of structure behind it. And then with verification options in BusinessOptix, which is great again, we also needed to come with standards and rules from HP perspective. Simple as it is, if you have a gateway and there is a simple yes or no, where this yes or no should go. Should it go on the top, below, right, down? Simple things as that need to be defined. Yeah. And that's the job of a level 2 council. Then when we move to level 3 council, obviously, this is something which is more ahead. KPIs, metrics, simulations, when we look at the compliances, I'm sure you guys are familiar, that probably next year, as I heard, CMMC is coming. So what with that, what with other regulations and stuff like that, which we need to define. So this is also something which level 3 council is there. Level 3 is just, another lower level from level 2. Simple as level 3 also needs to understand, where do you start mapping? Do we start mapping the processes which have issues? Do we start from top down? Do we start from down up? This is all different approaches which those council members need to, define for their organizations. And then last part, which I actually want to cover, is MIT, because I think that's a key thing for us in this journey. Because Phil, who is an MIT person, obviously guru in the BusinessOptix, how we interviewed with MIT. We actually continued that cooperation with them. We do have regular meetings with Phil and our team, and we share, first of all, what we want to do, what are the issues, what we want to improve, but more also important is what they have done, because their experience helped us tremendously in our journey, so that we don't really need to fail too many times. Obviously we fail, but again, he is helping us tremendously, and that's a cooperation which I see, BusinessOptix customers, which is ongoing really, really great. Yeah. And been super for now. Yeah. Yeah, Travis, that's from me. Stefan.
And then Stefan, briefly, we thought we'd give you a chance to just say, what benefits do you expect to realize as you move forward? Obviously, that's just early for you, but it'd be really interesting to get an insight into that.
Yeah. Hey, Travis and Marco. Yes. So Marco explained very well, I think, this strong setup we need with the governance. So we set up all this to create some benefits. So first benefit, I think it's really the standardization, centralization. And with all the surrounding tool we have, BPM N20 standard, master data system, etc., we are ready really to standardize and inject any Visio, SharePoint, whatever different groups have as a source for process into BusinessOptix. And this become the baseline for our standardization and centralization. But not only that, with all this centralized, we can now, as a second step, continue the improvement on processes. And it's not about starting improvements. We do improvements all over the place in different organizations, but now we are going to standardize this type of improvements on one centralized place. So I think all the Lean Sigma and different approach would have this baseline to go straight into the improvements with the right information, right data, etc. And on top of this, with the digital twin direction, with the let's say the process mining and connecting to the real data on production, we are now able to not only mine the production, but also with AI, inject some new ways and opportunities to detect the real areas of improvements in the different areas. So you see that the three pillars we've just seen are really the direction. But right away we get some benefit from the start. Why? It's because you get process ownership in addition to this. So this started right away with the standardization and the governance that Marco said. We need ownership, and from this ownership, we create the governance and start the benefit. So we already see some benefits today, even if we are early in our journey. So I think that's what I wanted to cover. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stefan. And again, thanks to the HPE team. Thanks, Amica, as well for all that great feedback from customers. Always goes a long way. And thank you. So I think, Dr. Natalie, I think.
Thank you, everyone. That's been really fantastic. Really exciting to see the results, and wow, I'm feeling a little bit jealous, honestly. All the days of mapping customer journeys by hand and then figuring out processes and then trying to integrate the technology in different capabilities and tools and getting everybody on the same page. So what I'd love to do is if you have questions from the audience, please type them into the chat. Dean, we have a question from Isabel, and she's asking about HP's process. How long did it take to get to the MVP? And then we also have another question about the ability to maintain the digital twin once you have it built. So those are two that we have.
And Travis can take the first one.
So that was how long does it take? Sorry, was that right, Dr. Natalie?
So yeah, how long did it take HP to get to their MVP?
Oh, sorry. So yeah, so I don't want to speak for Stefan and Marco, but I think that journey has been about a year going so far. I think there was some work done in the original conversation. Marco,
Yeah,
Stefan, would you say anything?
I can answer that.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
So we started last year, I would say in March, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be faster. We had a live production, I think, February this year. So you can say 11 months, I would say. But that's nothing to do with the BusinessOptix. This is because HPE, I would say, IT approval took almost 6 months. Our compliance, procurement, all the regulations took another 2 months. And we started actually working with BusinessOptix in December last year. So if you look at it, it was two and a half, maybe 3 months maximum. And again, this is hosted online. So basically, they created for us, I think, within 2 weeks, Stefan, if I'm not mistaken, per our, we obviously had a test environment which we still use for things which are coming out to test before we put it to production. But if you look at it, I think within 2 months from the moment we started, because we needed to agree on what's gonna be in the stencil, what kind of things they would enable. We are looking at the verification. We are looking, at the different master data which we wanted. I think Viv and Greg, who were supporting us, maybe 2 weeks, they needed everything to set up once we came up with the stuff. Yeah. But if you avoid all the regulations, all the IT, all the, I don't want to say the word, things, then, you can pretty much within, I would say, a quarter, maybe 2 to 3 months, have everything ready. Yeah.
And I think
don't know,
if
Stefan.
if I can clarify that for Marco as well, I think that's the point at which there's a growing repository. I don't think anyone's saying that's the point. I'm saying candidly too that there's a DT, a full digital twin at that point, but you've started to build your repository robustly with the amount of content. Is that fair, Marco?
Yeah. So actually, from the moment we started, we have now over 200 maps in the, and we are talking about processes which we mapped. We did import some of Visios, but again, things in our case were outdated. Owners are not there, and even if you have Visios, you still need to check it out because we didn't have clear governance behind it. So we over have 200, I think, maps, and it's like over, I would say, 300 and something diagrams, because each process can have a sub-process, internal, can have some external calls, but when I talk about internal calls, those are sub-processes of a main process. Those are different diagrams, so they also need to be mapped. So we go really quickly, and again, our setup is train the trainer, meaning Stefan and myself and other folks in our team don't map. We actually train everybody else how to do it. They map it. We obviously, before it goes to workflow and approval to be shared with the worldwide team, this gets approved and checked, but we do train the trainer approach. Yeah. And again, depending how much is your company, compliances, regulations, and all the stuff, you can probably do it within 2 months to implement it. As I said, Greg and Viv did probably within 2 weeks. Whatever we came with them, they set it up. Yeah.
Thanks, Marco.
Yeah.
I think I'd echo that. I think also it's very dependent on what is it that you're trying to achieve. Now, to Marco's very, very specific and important point, if this is a highly regulated business, you're going to need to make an investment in time, get the framework right, get the data, right. But if you are looking at, for example, a specific CX requirement, you can get to results and value very, very quickly. There was a question here which popped into the chat a moment ago. It sounds expensive to maintain. If you're going to build an enterprise complete replica of your business, first of all, you'll never finish it because your business changes every day. But secondly, clearly that's going to take a lot of management. In our experience working within the Davies Group world and working across all of our three key divisions with the subdivisions, and about 8,000 FTE across 60, 70 businesses now, we've found the optimal way for us as an organization is to map it out, use it for the purpose it's required for. Then when we're looking at making change in a certain part of an organization that's been mapped, we just revalidate. That revalidation exercise takes 10% of the time that it would take traditionally to go back in and start from scratch. And that's our experiences. So two very different ways of doing it, and quite interesting to hear about HPE's experiences.
That's great. We don't have any other questions. Dean, I know that you wanted to say something about an offer. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're thinking there?
Yeah, so I showed you some artifacts earlier on. This is the way that we deliver our service improvement, our tech scoping, our all of our sort of methodologies, and some of the artifacts you saw earlier in the demo are the models that we use. Now we're offering to any participant who applies for the offer a day's worth of workshopping, and in that workshop we can build you an op model on a page and map out one of your lines of business, whether that be a service business, sending people out into the field, whether it's a claims handling, whether it's a quoting of some type of product or service. We can create that value map for you, and we can also map out the high level pain points in that operation, and then present you back at the end of that after a following day with a series of artifacts, so visual outputs which you can share with the rest of your business, some reports consolidating and categorizing the pain points, and we'll build you in opportunities to improve your CX matrix, which will give you something to go back to your business with. And we're offering that to one lucky winner. You will need to scan a QR code in order to apply for that. If we could just go to the next slide. So if you scan that QR code to register your interest, and one lucky winner will be selected.
That sounds really amazing. I guess it depends on whether you're really ready to start, but it would be, I don't know. I'm just finishing up a project with a big hotel chain, and I know in terms of looking at their customer journey and trying to decide AI or quality management or both, or what kind of technologies to use. And as I was working with them, one of the things I found was they haven't really mapped the customer journey, and a lot of their processes don't really make sense with respect to what's really customer centric. It's just things that have been there for a really long time, and nobody actually sat down to look at them. So now having to do that by hand, it's been a really painful process. And so I'm really excited about introducing them to this new way of looking at business. And the other thing that I found was that they have a very strong IT department, and IT generally makes the decisions in this company, but they don't always share the perspective of the business. And so the business has their way of thinking about it, IT has their way of thinking about it, And what I'm really excited about is the opportunity to bring both of them to the table. Well, I just want to thank everybody for attending. If you want to follow me, I've just put my LinkedIn profile there. We'll be writing up the webinar. Dean, is there anything you want to say to wrap us up?
Well, I think you've covered it. I think, yeah, to your point, it's having that central place where everybody from all different business areas can agree on a single source of truth. That's the power of this and the reusability of it. So, no, I think you wrapped that up really well.
Excellent. So in the chat, you can see the link for the quick offer. I do a lot of these webinars, and I'm really thankful that so many people stayed till the end. That doesn't always happen. So I'm really hoping that we provided value, provided you with new insights, and just really want to thank you for attending.
Thanks to all of our speakers as well.
Yes,
Taking
great
the time
job.
out of your day. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Okay. Well, let's wrap up there then. Thanks for attending. You'll be able to catch this on the rewind via a link which will be sent out on social media. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to hearing from you with any other questions.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.